Question: how do you get cheap ways to travel? There's a big difference. This is critical. There's a huge difference between being a tourist and a traveler.
Or being on vacation or taking a vacation and traveling. And I think too many people think, when they think of travel, they think of vacation. And so they're thinking, oh, you go and you have to pay for hotels and you have to pay for expensive food at nice restaurants, and then you have to take, the tourist packages to go on all these group tours, and that's expensive. That's vacation. That's very, very different from travel. It's a totally different ballgame. Real travel is more like it's just living. You're living in another country than you're used to living in, that you've lived in before or whatever. It's basically just living expenses somewhere else. And so if you want to travel inexpensively, you just have to learn to live inexpensively, really. Where can you get cheap food? You cook your own meals to save. You rent a place that's inexpensive for a longer term rather than short term. You're going to save that way. So you're just learning to think of it in that way instead of thinking of travel as vacation.
Right. I like to see travel as cultural immersion, where you really get in and live with the people. And you do what they do. I love to get to a new place and just kind of sit back for a minute and observe. Or just ask the locals, hey, where do you buy your food? Where do you go do this? Where do you eat out? Where do you do this? And man, they've learned to live so inexpensively. And most of the countries we've traveled to outside the United States are very inexpensive. Again, you can spend thousands of dollars on your trip, or you can spend hundreds. And you can still have a great experience. You don't have to suffer. It's awesome. You can eat fantastic food. But if I get somewhere, I'm like, no, I'm only having macaroni and cheese and pizza, and it has to be from the States in the can with a certain label and brand. Whoa, you're going to be paying out the nose for that kind of stuff. But if you get here and say, okay, well, how do we get some fresh produce?
Eat? Where do they buy it? Shop at the markets. Another thing for sure is don't try to not arrange things before you come. You're going to get the best prices on places to stay and transportation and all of that when you're actually in the country, on the ground, because all the good deals are not on the internet.
Exactly.
They're not being advertised on the internet because they're offered by the local people who aren't using the internet. So when you actually get in the country and ask around, that's when you're going to find the good prices. And go where the locals go, live where the locals live. Follow their example because they know how to live cheap. And
I know some of you are flipping out right now. What? Don't plan? You show them live where the locals are? Are you crazy? No. There's so many great ways to live. You don't have to get on online and try to find everything, have it all planned out. No way, that you're gonna pay way too much. You can come down here and you can rent a really nice house, on the beach for 3 weeks for the same price it costs you to stay 5 days in a hotel. Yeah. And so now, I got 3 more weeks of vacation. We're eating some great local produce, super cheap and delicious. You eat at these other restaurants. Here's a high-end one. They're charging super price. This other restaurant's cooking the same exact thing, but a local price, and it's clean and healthy. And so there's so many ways to do that. You don't have to fly. If you do fly, there's certain ways to get around that, and there's ways to find cheaper flights. If you can drive, you can bus. We meet people all the time that just bus all over Central and South America, and that's after they've bussed all over Asia and Africa and Europe. I mean, these bus everywhere. They do these overnight buses. You get up in the morning, you're like, hey, I'm in a new cool place. We travel on vegetable oil.
You could do bikes.
We meet people with bikes.
Do bikes. They ride their bikes, and that's
cheap travel right there. You can camp. Again, camping. Man, we camp for free. We're in Guatemala, and from Alaska, we've camped for free the vast majority of the way. Yeah. And I didn't see any campgrounds. It's because there are no campgrounds, or very few of them. We would park in a farmer's field off on a road, and they don't care. They're like, stay as long as you want. I got some apple trees over here, and there's coconuts over here. Have as much as you want. It's just awesome.
In Mexico, even, you can stay at the gas stations. You can stay at the police stations. They let you camp there.
They're like, hey, pull up here. We're here all night. Just sleep right there.
Yeah.
So there's lots of alternative ways to just think outside.
Which again, part of the hesitation for people not doing that, again, comes back to kind of a question we answered before about fear. People are afraid, well, am I going to get robbed? Am I going to, something bad's going to happen? And I think a lot of that fear, again, comes from ignorance of not knowing and prejudice that sometimes we think, poor people in other countries, poor means that they're
dangerous and want to rob you.
Or bad.
It's just not the case.
That's really not the case. Most of them are not. They're just simple, honest, probably more willing to help you and feed you and, offer you their home than they are to take something from you. So
Absolutely.
A lot of that comes from fear. So if you're really honestly looking for, inexpensive, you can consider those types of options without having to be afraid that, it's going to be a bad experience.
Absolutely.
You need to, of course, be wise, and be aware, but if you are a good person and you're, treating people with respect, they're going to most likely be treating you with respect. So.
Absolutely. And there's areas you can tell that there's some bad things going on, but it's not just because it looks poor. And that's kind of a conditioning we have. If it looks real poor and run down, we're like, oh, it must be dangerous. It's not the case. But you can tell there's places of danger, places to steer away from. There's hostels. I mean, you're not going to find these little hostels online. They're just not there. But you'll find hostels where you can stay for a few dollars a night. And we've stayed at hostels right on the best beaches for peanuts. This is awesome. So there's so many ways to travel. And particularly once you get into the country, things can be so much less expensive and you can really get a lot done for a little.
Yeah, I think probably getting to a place will be your biggest expense. And then once you're there, if you don't prearrange everything and once you get there, you can usually find the better deals.